I get really sick of super reductionist discourse in general. If that hasn't become apparent already by the other videos that I've made, then I'll explain more here. I just really hate it whenever people sort of jump to the lowest common denominator opinion of things. And so I want to talk about this quote that I see applied to like Call of Duty games, to sports games, to other shooters, which is that, they just kind of release the same game every year. And I want to do that in a way that's not like trying to, lick Activision's boot or defend NBA 2K for essentially charging $70 for a roster update. But I actually want to talk about it in a context that's like, is this actually the case? I want to examine that more specifically. I'm going to do this to the backdrop of what is my first game on Modern Warfare 3 2023. And I included that little bit in the menu there just to show that is in fact actually the case. I purchased the game this morning, ran some errands while it downloaded and installed on my PC, and here we are. And it really sucks. Not the game, but just the circumstance that I find myself in, which I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here first, which is that this game I go 58-15 with 8 captures and 14 defends, I think is what I end up finishing with. And it just sucks because I'm never going to experience this high again. Like, this was legitimately fun. Like, playing on Rust for the first time in a while, the weapons feel good, the gameplay's pretty smooth, and I'm in a lobby with a bunch of bots. I get away with a lot of bad decisions, I get away with missing a lot of shots, and because of skill-based matchmaking, I will never experience a lobby like this again for the lifetime of this game. But I've already done a video on skill-based matchmaking, that's neither here nor there. It is a little bit, but really the core of what I want to talk about here are 2 quotes. The first is what I've titled the video, this is just a $70 DLC, or it's a $70 roster update. And then the second is a quote that's been going around the internet for the last few months by economist W. Edwards Deming, which is that every system is perfectly designed to get the result that it does. And I think these 2 things go hand in hand with how Call of Duty has, framed their releases, really, since, Modern Warfare 2 2009. I want to go all the way back to that and just sort of look at how Call of Duty has evolved and how it sort of fits into this perfectly crafted system where every 3 or 4 years you can really point to different chunks in the franchise's lifespan. And so let's go all the way back to Call of Duty Ghosts here. Really to Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2, I think a lot of people, especially people my age, so not elder millennials or elder Gen Z, but right in that zillennial range, look at Black Ops 2 as sort of the platonic ideal of Call of Duty. This is when the franchise hit its peak. This game did the most things correct and did the fewest amount of things wrong. And I honestly would be kind of inclined to agree with that. My personal favorite for how I like to play the game is Ghosts, but I think that if you're looking at if you want to put a term on it, the quote-unquote objectively best Call of Duty, I think that Black Ops 2 is a very fair choice for that. The problem is that Ghosts and Black Ops 2 are sort of at the tail end of this original boots-on-the-ground era, and people are super sick of kind of how basic the movement and the map design were. We had a bunch of Treyarch games in a row with the 3-lane maps. Ghosts kind of took things to a different extreme with really big maps where the gameplay was a lot slower. That's personally why I like it a lot more, is that the gameplay was a bit slower, it was more cerebral. Yeah, a lot of people camped, but I thought that you could get around that. And so Activision and Treyarch and Infinity Ward just went super in the opposite direction with Advanced Warfare. I was originally going to talk about this over the top of some Advanced Warfare gameplay that I found on my PC from sort of the last time I gave being a video game YouTuber a go. And it was just really interesting to me just how vertical those maps are. We talk about, Modern Warfare 2, or Modern Warfare 2020, I think, had a lot of discourse revolving around, the maps are too vertical, there's too many little, nooks and crannies that people can, watch from above in. And Advanced Warfare kind of has that, but it's even more, widespread, it's even more open, and, that's obviously to support the jetpacks. And you've got 3 jetpack CODs in a row there with Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare. Black Ops 4, I think people kind of consider a hybrid. I kind of lump it in with the jetpack CODs, just because I think it might even be more accurate to call them the hero shooter CODs. because that's when everybody was trying to be Overwatch, so Call of Duty tried to add this 3D vertical movement and then also be Overwatch. Anyway, but that's sort of the era that you've got as a response to, like, how boring people thought Call of Duty Ghosts was. Where sort of the gameplay speed was turned up to 1,000,000, you've got all these new angles that you've got to focus on, like, for example, like, Optic just won Call of Duty Worlds this year, like, the last week, right? Look at how those finals were played, and then go back and watch their series versus Envy in 2016 on Infinite Warfare. It is fascinating to me just how differently the game is played between those two eras, and, like, I think that in that playoff run, there's, like, a few players around still from there. Like, I know that at least a couple of members of, like, FaZe Clan during that championship, like, series are still kind of poking around. I want to say, like, I want to say Dashi is, like, in Optic's development program at that point, too. Anyway, it's really interesting to me. It's fascinating to look back at. Anyway, but, like, it's fun to compare. Sort of getting back to my point here. With the system being perfectly designed to get the result that it does, Infinity Ward and Treyarch love to, like, yo-yo. They love to oscillate. They love to go to each end of each extreme. Call of Duty Ghosts was this extreme on the end of, like, slow, cerebral, boots on the ground, really gunplay heavy, really map positionally heavy Call of Duty. A lot of big maps, a lot of score streaks, or a lot of kill streaks that were based around gaining intel, and a lot of score streaks that were based on, like, fitting yourself into the team concept. Like, the score streaks, I think, felt pretty underpowered in that game because a lot of them didn't really do a lot to increase your own kill total. I think a lot more, like, even the assault score streaks did a lot more to, like, help your team writ large as opposed to, like, you as a player. And then you go from there to Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and Infinite Warfare, which are just these, like, frenetic, sweaty, balls to the wall, everything is overpowered, therefore nothing is, like, lasers, death rays, map-wide score streaks, it's crazy. Like, earnable wall hacks, like, were a thing in at least half of those. Like, there was the earnable wall hack in Ghosts, but that was a lot less good because the maps were so good, or so big, excuse me. And so they went to that big extreme, and so then that allowed them to go all the way back to, like, super tense, boots on the ground, boring, basic with World War II and then Modern Warfare 2020, where people complained again about how big the maps were, how slow the maps were. And then, okay, so people don't know what they want until we have it. I've discussed that in another video as well. And then you swing all the way back to, like, what Call of Duty getting back to its roots has been, like, a big thing over the last few games. So much so that the $70 DLC is almost entirely content that has been released in other Call of Duty games. I get on this game and the first map that I am put into is Rust from Modern Warfare 2. It's sort of like Pokemon, right? Where, like, they'll release some sort of content pertaining to the Kanto region every game. But this is exactly what the system is supposed to do. They're gonna give us 3 or 4 years of the same game, or of games that are very, like, aesthetically and similar to each other from, like, a gameplay perspective, and then they're gonna swing wide into the opposite direction. Like, I think that Black Ops 6 is gonna be the first example of the swing, where, like, Omni movement is gonna be this new way for people to sweat, this new way for people to navigate around the map really quickly, and the gameplay pace is just going to get even faster, and, like, a slower style of play, not camping. There is a difference between playing slowly and camping. Maybe I'll examine that at some point. And this sort of slower style of gameplay is just completely left by the wayside. Until people get sick of that, and we go back to a game like Ghosts or like Modern Warfare 2020, where the game is super slow and rewards a lot of slower gameplay, and, unfortunately, in conjunction with that, rewards a lot of camping. And so I think it's really unfair to say that Call of Duty releases the same game every year. I think it's really unfair to say that, like, NBA 2K or Madden releases the same game every year, because if they did that, then we wouldn't be able to examine all of these games on their own merits, and we wouldn't be able to critique each of these games specifically. Yet every year you see a new game have its own specific set of criticism. And so I think that lumping all of these games that are very functionally different in together is just reductive and not helpful to, like, again, like real legitimate criticism of how good or bad the franchise writ large is. And I think it's partially why we don't really see much functional change.